What's up, folks? Casual Dad slash Trogdor here to talk about some kind of mixed news. I swear one of these days I will actually get back to talking about X-Wing the game. Yeah, we'll get there. But thanks to... Well, I'll get there. There's a Reddit post I'm going to link below here in the description of this video talking about the source for this information, where this came from. Special thanks to the poster for even bringing this up, because I did not hear about this before. But long story short, the investment group Embraer, if you hadn't heard, bought Asmodee, which owns Atomic Mass Games, which owns X-Wing, Legion, Shatterpoint, all of those, in 2021. And the sale was completed in 2022, I believe. So it was a $3 billion deal, and there were a couple interesting tidbits in this. And apologies here, I'm going to be talking through some news articles, and there are quite a few ads, so brace yourself. So let's see, and what's interesting though is Asmodee was already owned by a private equity firm, so on that level it wasn't a huge change. PAI Partners, and they paid 2.75 billion. Embraer did. It looks like, well, excuse me, roughly little over $3 billion to go ahead and buy Asmodee. And there's a lot of detail here. Every single article I read through, I'm going to go ahead and link in the description of the video too. They did mention that there were other interested buyers. So there's a lot of little details in here I wanted to go ahead and highlight. This is largely going to be speculation. What we do know is Embraer bought Asmodee. And now, this year, they're spinning Asmodee off. And there's some good and some bad to that. I'm going to talk through a couple of details here as we go through. The company has grown, nearly 1,000 games. Yeah, so this is more or less just saying that Embraer bought Asmodee. And then this is the actual official press release from Embraer with the completion of the purchase in early 2022, a couple years back. This one is full of insane jargon, which does not endear Embraer Group to me any more than I already felt about it. Don't love the business model, don't love what they were doing, and this especially is not great news for Embraer. Hopefully it's still decent news for Asmodee. We'll see on that one. There's a lot of information here about how much was paid for it, the actual acquisition, a lot of jargon about the shareholders. Yeah. Let's see if there was something key I wanted to highlight here. Yeah, anyway, big deal is that Embraer Group took control of Asmodee, and then everybody's shareholders made a bunch of money. Next. Now, here's where it gets a little bit interesting. So Embraer split into 3 separate organizations, one of them being Asmodee, and the other 2 being mostly video game companies. There are 2 separate video game companies. The one I remember is Coffee Stain and Friends. And then the other one, I believe, was Lord of the Rings and Friends, which is whatever. But Asmodee Group will largely remain similar in its organization, including the 23 in-house tabletop game development studios. So every single part of Asmodee is complete as it was prior to the purchase. Nothing is being spun off separately, nothing's being split up. And in fact, a current executive suite is going to become the CEO, because the current CEO will actually join the board of directors of Embraer, so a jump up there. And as will founder. So one of the actual founders of Asmodee is still there, which is cool, hopefully. Will maintain the tabletop publisher's portfolio of more than 300 owned IPs. Does not mention us at all. Boo. Now, this is one of the really unfortunate parts. So one of the big deals is that Embraer leveraged their debt against Asmodee's assets. So as part of the deal of this spin-off, they put a bunch of the financial debt that Embraer Group had, and now it is owed by Asmodee as a company. I believe it was by far the most debt saddled on a single company. Asmodee, as one of the individual groups, was one of those most confident in making the revenue up to actually deal with that, but still. There's some details coming through, but we're looking at close to $900 million. I don't know, that conversion is not one I know, but 900 million euros, pardon, in additional debt that Asmodee now has until early 2025 to pay. So we're talking about a very short window to go ahead and pay off this debt. Let's see. Important part of the debt refinancing. Yeah, I'll bet it is. Let's see. Okay, so that's that one. Let's see, that was 4. This is 5. Now, there is some of the really bad news that we've seen is that we do have confirmation that some of the studios that have been spun off are experiencing layoffs. Not really a big surprise. We're very likely to see some layoffs and product cancellations at Asmodee as well, because they have to do some real belt tightening to deal with that mountain of debt that was saddled entirely on them. It's a real bummer for everyone involved. There is a little bit of a silver lining with Gearbox. I do not support the layoffs at all. That really sucks. I think Gearbox has been struggling a bit for a long time, just to do a little side rant here, because most of what they're doing is putting out a lot of rehashes of fairly tired IPs that haven't innovated in a long time. They're somewhat held back in a lot of ways because there's a lot of probably executive decisions to fully invest in their existing intellectual properties and to not experiment, not get creative, and to keep basically remaking the same game every couple of years. But there is some good news here. So they're making Borderlands 4, so that's just more evidence of what I just said. But the good news here is that whenever I think of Gearbox, I think of Take-Two. Take-Two and 2K being two of the publishers that have worked with them for a very long time. And it's actually Take-Two that is buying Gearbox. So it's still large corporations gobbling each other up. But this is a long-term partner of Gearbox who's the one in the driver's seat now taking this over. So knowing very little about this, this is cool. I actually really appreciate that Gearbox and Take-Two are still going to be working together in 2K. So that's good. And continue to be led by the founder and CEO of Gearbox. So there is some good news there, some silver lining that potentially could also be a similar story with Asmodee. That's why I wanted to jump in that one. But of course, the layoffs are absolutely bad news. And that's general belt tightening among the gaming industry in general. Belt tightening meaning not being willing to take a profit hit for whiny investors. Pardon my French. Okay, next up. Let's see, was that 5? That was 5. Number 6 is one of the kind of more troubling pieces. So this is talking specifically about the debt that Asmodee is left with based on Embraer Group. So 958 million US dollars, 900 million euros. The loan will be used to refinance Embracer's existing debts, which need to be repaid by February 2025, which now is also the deal for Asmodee as well. Now, of course, they can always pull some financial magic here, get a different person. If they're not able to fully pay off the loan, they will probably be able to find someone else to service the loan, pay off the current loan, and then shift the other one onto someone else. But the terms may get worse, so there's probably a lot of incentive not to do that unless there's another purchase. And that's one of the things hanging over this is there's always opportunity here for someone else to come in and buy Asmodee, but now Asmodee looks like a much worse purchase because of this debt. So there's a lot of incentives to go ahead and pay off the debt fairly quickly. Refinance with no recourse to Embraer Group. It is only secured by Asmodee assets. That is a huge bummer. Meaning only the board game publisher will be liable for repayments. Asmodee is a fairly profitable company and doing quite well, and doing considerably better than a lot of the video game IPs or video game publishers out there. So this is still not the worst possible news. And this, my understanding is that your net debt to adjusted, this is from very basic research, but my understanding is that this should be less than 1. So that is almost 4 times the healthy value for a company's debt ratio. Yeah, there we go. And the entire rest of everything spun off is going to be about 0.6, which is positive. So one good thing here is that this heavily implies that Embracer will want to leave Asmodee the heck alone, which potentially good. We honestly don't know who's been making decisions here, or if there have been any particularly bad decisions made in that span of time. We can't be sure who exactly is responsible, but there's always a chance it was Embracer. So moving some variables around to see what happens here. Here we go. Embracer, yeah, okay. Embracer will be carrying a debt equivalent to roughly 0.6 years profits, while Asmodee will be carrying, yeah, okay. So that's the math there, and what that works out to is that Asmodee's current debt is about 4 times the profit it makes in a year, which is really bad. So, and because there's a fairly short repayment on that. Okay, not a lot of good news here. And we are very likely to see a lot of other news come out of this, so we'll see what happens. So I've got one more. And this is just looking at Asmodee's profits. So we already looked at the number here. And we're looking at a 3.9%. Now that, or 3.9x debt to annual profits ratio. Now, what Asmodee is basically going to have to do is significantly increase their profits and pay down this debt somehow. That could mean finding a buyer, could mean finding some investors who are willing to take a stake in the company in return for paying off some of that debt. There's probably quite a bit they'll be able to do here, but the most likely thing we're likely to see is going to be layoffs. So we're almost certainly going to see layoffs in Asmodee's IPs and studios, and we'll see kind of what that is. We can hope that doesn't impact AMG or the team there, but we will see. One thing that's particularly sad to me about this has nothing to do with the performance of the tabletop games. It has nothing to do with the performance of the individual studios. All of this is top-level weirdness, obnoxiously impacting everything below, which is a pretty common story. More hesitant market environment. This is actually a report from early last year, so this is long before any of this news. This was just looking kind of the income from the past year. I have not looked yet. I don't know if Asmodee has reported yet what their profits were for 2020. What they would have released their profits around the same time. They may already have. I could look into that. Yeah. So Asmodee had a profit of about 1.22 billion, and that was total sales. Excuse me. So this doesn't even comment on profits. That's the total sales, which is just more than the total debt they're saddled with, but not by a huge amount, and that is sales, not profits. So that's a dramatic income, which is good, but how much that is profit is questionable, and it's certainly not enough to just pay out the debt outright within the year. So they're going to have to do something. Let's see. Asmodee having a solid Q4 and a seasonally quiet quarter, driven by strong performance in the UK and Central Europe. Thanks, guys. Here it is. No, that's just total sales again. I was looking for profits, but we'll see. Okay. And they saw a 6% increase thanks to strong performance from trading cards. So there is a lot, even at that point, that's probably gone up. There are a lot of things that make Asmodee a tempting purchase. If another company wants to buy them out and figure out their debt, or they're able to get investors to kind of help support them in this, then there's always strings attached for that. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, but this is early on, and I believe Star Wars Unlimited has taken off dramatically, so they may have had a very good year. Probably not enough to make up this much difference, but it's there. Yeah. Interesting. So this, from a financial perspective, biggest IPs include Ticket to Ride, Catan, Splendor, Seven Wonders, Azul, Exploding Kittens, Double Spot It, and Star Wars Legion. So Legion is the one that makes the biggest financial impact right now. Interesting. This is another kind of interesting quirk. And this is Embracer, actually, specifically. This is not specifically on Asmodee. So Embracer was looking to make a major sale to another firm, and that fell through. We don't know much about that. Anyway, so that's where we're at. So the really quick kind of high-level summary here is that Asmodee is going to have to make a lot of money very quickly. They're going to have to cut costs, they're going to have to increase profits, which basically means layoffs and products cut. This may also mean that if they have anything on the shelf they have to sell, they're going to put it out there. We honestly don't know. But there's going to be a lot of news coming out of Asmodee, either loud or quietly. And Asmodee also impacts Fantasy Flight and, of course, Atomic Mass Games. So we're really going to have an interesting year here, and we'll see what happens. And I'll keep watching this one. Sorry, this one is a little bit depressing. A lot to unpack here, and we'll be back at it soon.